Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Leaders In and Leaders in Business, November the 20th. We are absolutely honoured and delighted to have you with us today. I do just need to cover off a few rather boring housekeeping matters, but they are normally boring, but I'd like for Orange, actually, show you an Orange ad which covers off far better than I can housekeeping point number 1.
Hi, I'm Leticia Preciado in Hollywood, where Orange are enhancing the movie-going experience once again. Specially trained phone guards are now on hand to ensure not a single text or call is made during a movie.
You're bagging my phone?
Yeah, we're just gonna bag your phone this way. It will not be a distraction during the movie.
Whoa, popcorn! We got a P97. Excuse me, back away, please.
Over here, sir.
Really?
Clear.
I really do see myself as a guardian of entertainment. They're on the screen doing their job. I'm in the theater doing my job. Without me, nobody gets to enjoy them.
Ma'am, I will pat you down. I will pat you down to Chinatown, all right?
I don't think so.
Yeah. We'll play patty cake, all right? And I'll be the baker's man.
Sniffing dogs provided to us by Orange. No difference really between them and us, other than they're dogs.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't be alarmed. I'll be releasing a member of our canine strike force into the theater. He'll be sniffing out any cell phone signals. Cookie! Heel! Cookie! You are making me look stupid. Enjoy the movie. Pretend we're not here. Cookie! No, you shh. Get the point, right? But if you could just turn them on silent, that would be absolutely fine. I'd like to now introduce our speaker to you all. He has held many senior positions around the world, including some great companies like Compaq and Hewlett-Packard. He is known as one of the leaders in not just telecommunications, but also in business. And we're absolutely delighted to have him here today. Since joining Everything Everywhere as it was back then, he has done an absolutely phenomenal job in merging both T-Mobile and Orange. And he's also done a phenomenal job at changing the name from Everything Everywhere to the great name EE. Which is absolutely fantastic. And he's the man that is bringing us the 4G network here to Britain earlier and faster than anyone else. So I'm absolutely delighted and honored to welcome to the stage Olaf. Olaf, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
If we can just start with what we did with Neil as well, the quickfire round, just to get to know the man behind the presentation and the CEO of EE. And that's just to sort of, really short quickfire questions and answers. Number 1, what is your favorite restaurant in London?
Okay. I have a lot of favorite restaurants. The one that I like is the, what's it called, the Bluebird? Bluebird, I like very much.
Kings Road, yeah.
Yeah, I like that one. I go there frequently.
Prince Harry goes there as well, I'm sure.
I didn't know that, actually. And then I like a few in, I live in Richmond with my Swedish wife and 3 children. And there's very nice places around there where we go. Like tonight, we will probably have to go there because we don't have hot water, so we will probably...
Please stay in this country, please. Yeah. What do you like to do to relax on the weekend?
Well, I like to be with my children, but I also love endurance sports. So that's depending on the season. So here it's mostly running and cycling. But I love cross-country skiing and swimming and all long-distance stuff, and mostly on my own.
On your okay.
Yeah.
Gives you some time to think.
Yeah. No competition. No.
Yeah.
But I like that.
Because presumably in the office you don't get much time on your own.
No, exactly. It gives me. I mean, the leadership trick that I've used many times is my sports, because it gives me a time to relax. Yeah. And to think, really. I use that time normally. So I try to sport every day, about not long, 30 minutes a day. But that gives me time to, just reflect and take decisions.
Fantastic, good insight. Last 2, how does it feel to sit in the cinema and watch some of those very, very cool Orange ads when everyone is laughing their heads off?
That's really
I'm
good.
the CEO of this company. Is that?
Well, the guys who have developed it, I think they're sitting in the audience somewhere in the back. That's really cool, actually. Yeah. Especially when you're with your kids, it's really cool. What is also, I had a really cool moment last Saturday, which was really nice. Because I spend so much time in the stores and on the front with the front line, most of the salespeople, they know me. So I was walking with my 2 daughters, and we went into one of the stores because I wanted to know how things are going, and I asked them quickly. And my daughters, they say, oh, wow, that's really cool. They know you and they talk to you, and these important shop managers, they really help you. And they thought it was absolutely fantastic. That was a nice moment. But on the cinema, these ads are really cool. And I love the Kevin Bacon. Have you seen the Kevin Bacon ads? They're pretty cool. They're pretty good, no? I think they're really good.
It's playing in your offices. I went round to the EE offices and there it was.
No, I think that has worked well.
Yeah. Presumably it's quite expensive, but we're not going to talk about that. Let's talk about, you mentioned 4G, let's bring it to life. This is a quick fire round question, so just quick answer. What's one of the coolest things we can do with our 4G phones and our 4G network when it comes about?
But it's already there, by the way, so you can use it now. So you can go to your stores and get it. It's fantastic. 11 cities, works very well. London up to the M25, works really perfectly. The feedback from the customers that I spoke to is they are very positive about the network. Some have had issues to go through the process because we had some initial issues with the IT systems, that not everything worked perfectly, and there was a lot of people we had to work through. But without any exception, all the customers saying, wow, this is really cool. And the application I like most is just watching TV programs that I didn't have the time to watch, because you watch it and there's no waiting. So you just click on it and bang, it comes up. And so that's pretty cool. And the coolest application for business is not yet in this country, and I hope that I can get it here, is an ambulance application in Germany, which is basically a 4G application in the ambulance that allows people that have like heart issues to be helped in the hospital much faster, because they can send from the ambulance, they can send much bigger data files, like scans or all the data across to the hospital, so it cuts the time from getting into the hospital to being operated by 50%. And I thought it was quite a fantastic business application in healthcare.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
Just on the brand thing, just to clear that up if you can, Olaf. So we've got Everything Everywhere trading now is EE, which owns Orange and T-Mobile, which is half owned by Deutsche Telekom and France Telecom. There's a lot of telco brands in there. So is EE now going to replace the other two, Orange and T-Mobile?
No. So basically, we never really marketed Everything Everywhere. I mean, if you would ask a customer in the UK, they wouldn't know what that was really. They didn't really understand. So what we trade with is EE, Orange, and T-Mobile. Okay. T-Mobile is straightforward value, very clear, very straightforward value. Orange is for those customers that say, listen, I want to have more from my mobile phone, so typical extra cinema. You mentioned it before, cinema and other things, loyalty points. And then EE is just super fast. EE is about 4G and fiber.
Right.
And that's what we sell and support, and and it works well, because I know that everyone in all the experts and the analysts, and they always say, why do you need these three? It allows us to be not one size fits all in a society where there is a lot of different needs and requirements. And if you have 34% market share, it's kind of hard to reach everyone with one proposition, really.
Okay.
So we will maintain 3 propositions.
Okay, makes sense. Just a quick one on coming up with EE. Obviously, it's an acronym for Everything Everywhere. Was that always? I mean, who came up with the idea? It's a very smart idea, and I love the application for G.
Well, when you try to find a name, I thought, because I haven't done this before, so I've never really had to go through a mega rebranding and find a new name. You think the process starts with, I can pick a kind of a nice couple of names. Yeah. It's quite a boring process, because you actually have to find a name first that legally fits. And I can tell you, most names are already taken. So if you try to find a name for your company, most of the names are already taken in the world. And then the second thing is, all the research is pointing to the fact that the name needs to be simple, short, easy to remember. You need to put something behind the name that really makes a difference internally and externally. And that's the difficult bit. So finding EE was actually really easy, because we asked I asked a lot of the frontline people, you know, what would you like? You know, what is easy for you? What is simple? What do you think can be easily marketed? And most of the people said, you know, it is hard to say on the phone, we're working for everything everywhere, and you know, it costs time. Yeah. So that's why we pushed this name EE. And what we had to do behind the name is establish also, of course, the vision, but then some values that represent the new company. And that is more important and more difficult to do than finding the name. Yeah. And I can recommend that if you go through something like this, you need to spend quite a lot of time making sure that the values of your company are values that you can really live by, that you can really market internally, and that where you're absolutely convinced that they also make sense in driving your propositions to the market.
Yeah. Just quickly, top 2 values.
So we are saying we're bold,
yeah.
We're brilliant, we want to be brilliant, yeah. We aspire to be brilliant.
Yeah. Should have been called BB.
And we want to be clear. Yeah. So we have three values. Okay. We want to be clear because we think that building a fast and good service proposition to our customers, we need to demystify and simplify and be much clearer in our products and propositions. So that's why we want to be clear. I said we want to be bold because sometimes we need to take risks. We need to be entrepreneurial. When you are a leader, you need to be innovative and you need to push ahead. And to be brilliant is more a state of mind of trying to go the extra mile at work every day. Is to really try to make every day, I guess, a good day. That's about, you know, being brilliant and trying to get that little extra performance in yourself and in the company overall.
Olaf, you're surrounded by a great management team and great leaders. You have to be, otherwise the CEO is in a lot of trouble. So what do you look for? What do you believe makes for a great leader?
I think the first thing that I always looked for is diversity. So diversity I always found very hard to manage because it's a little bit difficult if you have this team of different people, different backgrounds, gender, age, culture. I mean, you need to have differences in your team, and it's very hard to manage because in the beginning it can be quite conflictual. But I have a lot of good experience with teams that are where everyone is completely different. I keep this picture of my first management team on a wall to always remind me, search diversity. And when I look at that picture, and I was very proud because I thought it was a very good management team, although I mostly inherited that team at the time. That team, when you look at the picture, I mean, everyone looks completely different. One is like this. It's and I think you get power in your company if you have diversity from the top down.
Representing the sort of socio-demographics of the people you have as your consumers, presumably as well.
Yeah.
Let's just say you've got one of these great leaders, and they came to you and said, "What is the one piece of leadership advice, Olaf, that you would give me?" What would that be?
That's difficult because I already said a few things, but the one leadership advice. Can you ask me the next one, and then I'll come back to that.
We can come back to that one. Let's talk about you for a second, and your own leadership style, Olaf, if we can. The Daily Telegraph said that you are a no-nonsense but likable Dutchman. Presumably, you wouldn't disagree with the likable component of that. But what do you think that they mean by the no-nonsense?
Well, my style is very open, and I try to be very pragmatic, and I try to be driven more by numbers than by words. So, what I don't like is these very long PowerPoints or research, or I always believe numbers tell a very clear story. And then from numbers and from an open discussion, you can find out what the key issues are and what you have to work on. And then no nonsense is really about roll up your sleeves and work on those issues with your team. Try to be the environment where I can't work, where I find it really hard to be successful, is a political environment. So, I think you always have at times in your career, you have had situations where you said, oh, this was very political.
Yeah.
And I'm very much the opposite, and I have big difficulties working in that sort of environment, where there's people with agendas and where it's not a real clear, open, transparent culture.
Yeah. Is that avoidable, you think? Because a lot of people say, I hate the politics of my company. How can you practically prevent that from happening, if at all? Just focus on the numbers, I presume.
Well, I think one of the ways you can avoid it is by constantly go back to the people who are definitely not political, which are, in my company, the people who deal with customers. They are not political because they have to solve a problem from a specific customer, and so they don't have an interest.
No.
So I can give you a quick example. We were working on some big issues around call propensity. I will spare you the details, but we spend a lot of hours with different teams, and it's very difficult because it's cross-functional, and nobody really wants to tell, well, the problem is really there or there.
Yeah.
So then I spent last Friday a full day in the call center in Merthyr in Wales. And when the agents were free, and we had some lunch, they asked me, what are you working on right now? And I said, well, we have this big problem, and I can't work through it really. And then, they said, let's work on that. And we spent 20 minutes discussing it. And we got more out of that discussion out of the whole management meeting, because it was a completely unpolitical environment. They said, well, it should be like this or it should be like that. So that helps me to avoid politics.
Excellent, excellent. Olaf, talk about that. You are, leaders have to make tough calls, right? And when you first came in to the merger, T-Mobile and Orange, you made some tough calls. In fact, there's widely reported in the press that you laid off half the management team. I don't know if that's an accurate number or not. But tell us about that, sort of where a leader has to make those decisions as well as inspiring and everything else.
Well, I generally don't like to reduce employment or to have to tell people that they have to leave. But I had to do that because we had far too much management in our company. So we had 26 people reporting to me, and it was still very much a Ark of Noah situation. So you have two management teams, which in the beginning of a joint venture is actually a good thing to have, because you don't want to immediately lose the knowledge. And it takes some time. I came more from the Orange side. It takes some time to understand the other side and to appreciate. I've worked in mergers where the first day the CEO comes in and said, bang, everyone out. And what you end up with is actually you lose many times a lot of talent immediately. So it does take some time. And I had the opportunity, this was my advantage. First of all, I've been working with the joint venture for some time. And I had worked with Tom Alexander to prepare already for some changes. So I could move fairly quickly in making, I think, the right decisions. Right. And then to take those decisions, I find is hard. But if you treat the people ethically and you are frank and open, I think it works.
Yeah. As you said, you have two of everything, right?
Yeah, at that time. Not anymore. So we went through that very quickly in the beginning, and we had to do that. Yeah. And if there is one advice, to come back on your previous point, there's one advice I can give is, when I was announced, I was still in my old job, and I wanted to go on vacation and spend some time with my family, and then come back and start and doing the general, the first 30 days, and then the next 30 days, listening, deciding, implementing. And the employees came to me after I was introduced, and they said to me, you need to move very quickly on this and this and this, because this has been hanging over the company for a long time, and everyone has made promises before that they would deliver it in a certain point of time, and because of issues with shareholders or complicated, it wasn't done. So then I started thinking, actually, this company has to be faster in delivering plans, so why don't I set the example? So I then said to the team, I will be here on the first day and announce my team on day one. I will do that on day one. So the reaction immediately from all the employees was, he will not do that. He will not be able to do that. He's going on vacation, he's still in an old job, he will not do that. And then, which was very good actually, because Well, it was not very good for my wife and my family because I actually didn't have any vacation. So I was preparing all the time and making sure that you don't shoot from the hip, but you take the right decision. So prepare that. But then while I was working, I was thinking, I actually can enhance that. I know there's 2 other issues that are really burning platforms. So why don't I try to solve those as well, or at least that they are nearly ready to switch. So when I come on the first day, I can say, I've done this. Then I can do an employee roadshow and say, what's the next issue? And if they then say, well, it's this, they say, oh, I'll fix that in a week. Right. And it was not a week, but 2 weeks or something like that. And I did that. And the reaction was very positive because then suddenly people say, oh, no. So this guy, he has delivered immediately his first team. Okay, but he worked during the vacation, so fine. You know, we got that afterwards. Yeah. But then during the employee talks, I said, well, you know, we have this issue. Or they said, you have this issue. And I said, we'll fix it by next Friday. We'll fix it. I said, but you know, so next Friday it was fixed. So then people said, okay, before we now ask a third thing, maybe he is allowed to ask us for something. And with that, we could actually accelerate the execution. Because then people start thinking, yeah, okay, we need to move fast. So it's I guess it's the lead by example. You know, if there's a problem around execution, make sure that you execute much faster than people expect, a couple of times, with some tricks sometimes. And then you really lead by example and you force the organization to move on that particular problem.
Just to give you an example as to Olaf's execution detail, I've been told that he can helicopter right up to the top to look above the sort of the landscape, the competitive landscape, but also I had a real life example. I was trying to call EE, trying to find out the head office number to give your office a call, and I called and I spoke to somebody called Wendy in one of the northern call centres up there, and I said I'd like to have Olaf's telephone number, and she said, why do you want it? And I said, well, because he's going to speak for us, and I just want to speak to his communications team. And she said, he's speaking for you? Is this, are you joking? Is he really speaking for you? I was like, yeah, he's really speaking for me. And then he quotes, Olaf is a great CEO, as he really does come and talk with us. In fact, he listens in on my calls. It totally freaks me out. But it just shows how hands-on he is. So presumably it's a very important thing.
I don't remember Wendy, but I spent a lot of time with them, and you know, I can tell you here, you know, because we are all leaders in some shape or form. But what people do who are working in the call centers today is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You know, these people don't, you know, earn a lot. They come out of university, or sometimes they have been in those call centers for years. It is amazing. They have to solve problems. They have to be a psychologist on the phone, because everyone who phones a call center is somehow irritated and wants to get an answer immediately. They have to work with different systems. We have asked them this year, we don't want you to transfer the call. We want you to solve the problem. You must solve the problem. You're not allowed to transfer the call because people hate that. So they had to train in operating systems. I mean, it is amazing what these people have to do and go through. Every time when I'm there, I'm very, how do you say that? Yeah, I mean, proud of what they do, but also blown away by what these people can do in sometimes very, very difficult circumstances.
Well, that empathy you just mentioned obviously comes across to Wendy, because she pointed that out. If we can just move gear just quickly on risk taking, you mentioned about corporate risk taking. 4G was due to hit the UK in 2014. As you mentioned, you went to the authorities, you got it
2015,
early. 2015.
Earliest, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you've obviously been able to bring it forward by persuading or whatever you were able to do. But it is a significant risk for both for you know, the 1.4 million pounds a day you're investing into the network, and also potentially for you yourself as the CEO driving that forward. So from your perspective, you know, tell me about that decision, because there's benefits of being first to market. There's also benefits of being second, because you can just learn from the mistakes from the first and be the seamless, smooth operator and go in second.
I guess by taking risk, and at times, of course, it was very stressful, because I was not always sure that we were going to be able to deliver it. But to be able to say to your team, when they asked me, at times they said, but what's the plan B? And I said, there is no plan B. So that was kind of refreshing, because I mean, of course, potentially we would have continued, but there was not a real plan B around leadership, and if we wouldn't have been able to activate and drive our network. And that was one of the reasons why all the teams were able to deliver, because everyone started to understand what is at stake.
Yeah.
And so I think it was good to do that. What was it difficult? Yes, at times I think it was very difficult to live with that. In particular, the problem is always, and I think that's where it's difficult to take these risks. If you take a risk, but you can control the execution, that's kind of okay for me. But if there is 20 to 30% which is not directly under your control, so which is sitting with a regulator or sitting with some lawyers who are keep fighting you from the competition, that's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
And so my advice is, if you expect that, if you take a risk that 40% of it or 50% of it is going to be external, don't do it. But if it's, most of it is within your own, remit, I think you should do it, especially when you are a number one or a leader. Then you should just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. As you said, the biggest risk is taking no risk at all.
Well, that's the other point. That's the other point. In hindsight, some of my competitors have taken more risk by just using lawyers and not differentiate with the network, because they could have, at any point in time, start changing their tactic and actually start moving forward.
Just quickly on decision making, it's a very small but practical point. You're the guy that's making the decisions as to where to invest, the money. Obviously, you've got your community. But do you decide these big £1.4 million a day investment network decisions on gut, or is that, as you said, it's purely financial?
No, of course not. I mean, you can't. I mean, then I wouldn't be here. No, you have to have a plan. Of course, you have we have a very solid financial plan. We have made some really big financial commitments to the analyst community that I need to. That are the principles. I need to get to 25% margin. I need to get 3.5 billion in synergy. So I have some very, very clear guidelines. And then, we spend a tremendous amount of time with the technology teams, with the IT teams, to make sure that we have the right plan and the right financials behind it. And then, we discussed it with the shareholders, and we're able to get the approvals.
Olaf, just one or two last questions from me, then we can open it up to the floor. But you mentioned there in your presentation about putting the focus on the customer, and as you said, a lot of organizations have, as a mantra, we're customer-centric, but it's difficult to actually live and breathe it. You mentioned that point. So if I can just bring you back to that, how realistic, how practically, I mean, all of the competitors, as you said in your sector, say, customer experience or customer insight, whatever it is, that's how we differentiate. But how do you actually live and breathe that to make sure you are customer-centric?
Well, so the first thing I said was to spend time there, and I think that helps. And then the second thing, which I find very difficult at times, is you have to sometimes take difficult decisions between time to market and customer experience. So sometimes, we had a recent example where we introduced a new phone in the market, and our technical people told us, well, this is maybe not really going to be good. And you have to make this trade-off. The people are trained. The advertising is already planned. It's hard sometimes. It's really hard to make those hard cuts. And I think you need to be, at times, courageous and say, okay, we don't do this. And it might have a negative financial impact in the short term. And that I find difficult, is to make those trade-offs. Yeah. The way I've dealt with it is, I've got a person in my team. I have a person, Jackie O'Leary, who is representing those issues. So she represents those issues in the board, and she has a veto. So she is allowed to say, guys, you cannot do this. This will have too big an impact. And by bringing customer experience into the board, by someone who is not in a functional position, but in a real operational role. So she is in an operational role. I think you can work through those issues. Yeah,
Very
you
good,
can work
very
through those issues.
Yeah. And final question for me, you mentioned that you came over to this country and you're challenging the assumption of the network here. You're putting new benchmarks in, saying that it just isn't acceptable. You went in and you sort of saw this scorecard of red, amber and green, and you challenged the assumptions there. So challenging the assumptions as what is acceptable is one of those traits of great organizations and great people. So how do you make sure that your culture is constantly doing that and you are challenging the assumptions to make sure you're making big improvements?
It's a good question. I don't know actually.
I haven't got an answer for it. That's why I'm asking.
Do I challenge? Well, I mean, first of all, by establishing this value around being bold, we try to allow to give people permission to think out of the box, and we allow people to come forward with sometimes, some crazy ideas and. And to challenge the status quo. We try to do that. We try to bring that in through the values that we have implemented. And the advantage we had, which is sometimes difficult, when you are in an infrastructure business, I thought it was actually quite logical to start challenging the status quo because this country has to work on its infrastructure. I mean, I was amazed. Sometimes I'm sitting in a train. And I drive to the north, and you get this excuse: we're going to be late because there are leaves on the trains. I could not believe it when I heard it the first time. Now I get used to it now. So, and
very big leaves.
Or all this the one that I even taped because I thought this one I think is the most interesting one was the water infrastructure. I mean, you must remember this one where. Was the person, probably for very good reason, who was representing the water infrastructure in the UK, or I don't know, one of the big organizations. And he said, it has to rain from now until the last day of the year, 24/7, and then maybe we have enough water to serve the society. I thought, I mean, people have to stand up and say, my God, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Or take Heathrow. I mean, when you fly, Heathrow, every time you go to Heathrow, the first thing that goes through my mind, oh my God, I'm going to be late to this meeting. This country has to do something about these problems.
It's funny because we were in drought all the way up until the end of September, and we had a Vietnamese monsoon every day.
It was raining like crazy, and we were not allowed to water or to clean our cars. And I think that this is something interesting about this society that you accept that infrastructure. We need to do something about that.
Yeah. Well, we need things to complain and moan about, right? I mean,
no, you need to. It's not so difficult to do it. I mean, it takes a few years. But at least what I can say is that on the digital infrastructure side, I'll make sure that with my company, this country will get an infrastructure that we are proud of. That's what I want to have here. And when I started here, the infrastructure in my space was running behind the US, Korea, Sweden, many countries. Now the infrastructure that is already here in London and in 10 other cities is an infrastructure that is better and bigger than in any other city in Europe. And afterwards, I want to try to get an infrastructure that is beating some of these countries that are a bit the poster childs in terms of digital infrastructure. The poster child in the world today is Korea. So Korea, I don't know if you know, they have the advantage that it's a small infrastructure, a small country, and secondly that everyone lives in apartments. So it's easier to build a digital infrastructure for everyone. But I think we can, my company can certainly make a big contribution to the digital infrastructure, big contribution.
Thank you very much, sir. Brilliant. Okay, so if we can, on that note, open it up to the floor.
Hi, I'm Rotem. I have two questions. One, how do you generate or foster this openness of your employees to actually provide you feedback? And the other one, what's your vision for the telecommunication industry as a whole, that we see that everybody is actually showing really poor numbers?
Right. So on the first one is to foster an open environment is of course to lead by example. So is to be really open, is to engage with different people. The way I do this is I try to go through all the ranks without removing accountability. So I think There are some, you don't want to be a micromanager. So you don't want to be the leader that comes in and Mr. Fix It. Yeah, you come in, you fix it, and you bypass everyone else. But I see it as my right as the CEO to pass all the management, to ask questions, to engage, to learn, and to motivate. But I'm not allowed to remove accountability. So that's what I try to do. So, as an example, what did I do today? I had a breakfast with 20 employees, from the company, from anywhere else, to share, learn, and to live that. On your second question, I think this industry is a little bit underrated, in particular by the investors, and a lot of investors and shareholders. I mean, frankly, also, no, I'm not going to say that because I'm not allowed to say that. But what I will say is that I think it's an underrated industry. It's an industry that is incredibly exciting. It's an industry that moves very, very quickly. And it's one of the rare industries where we produce a product which is intrinsic in people's life. It's so intrinsic in people's lives that they use it all the time. They're really upset when it doesn't work. And if I ask each one of you to pass on your phone to someone else and say, it's just a commodity, so just pass it on and let the other person use it, I think most people would feel extremely uncomfortable because you have your personal. So it's a really exciting industry. It's a really exciting industry. And I think we have an opportunity to rebuild some of the value in this market. The issue for this industry which is a little bit similar to the airlines industry, is that there are a lot of operators around the world, and there is a very, very big focus on making sure that the pricing is right, which is good. I think that is important because so many people use it. But there is so much focus on pricing that in Europe nowadays you have 163 operators, and you have only one Apple and one Google. So it gives you an idea. And we have to invest in the network, and we need to invest every year 10% of our revenue to just make sure that it works. So that's one of the issues we have as an industry, that the regulatory framework is not very investor and company friendly today. And I don't blame the regulatory framework. It's also part of our own making. I mean, we should create more excitement, and we should solve some of the problems that do exist, like roaming and other things. But that's I would say how I see it.
Thank you. We've got another question right here, please.
Hi, Sophie speaking.
Just 1 second.
I just wonder what you see as the future kind of business model really in your industry, and whether you think it's going to massively change, whether data is going to be where the bulk of your revenue comes from, or whether you think it's going to be a data or a B2B kind of business model, and how you see that kind of changing over time.
Right, so it's increasingly an access fee model. So what that means is that there will be, similar to, I guess, Neil who was here before me, a subscription model. In the UK in particular, there's still a lot of customers that are what we call on prepay products. We think that over time it will be much more a subscription, and where most of the revenue will have to come from the subscription fee. You will have less and less what we call out of bundle. Also because, well, there's different reasons for that, but and that subscription fee is fundamentally a price for a set of services around data. Because even a telephone conversation on a 4G network next year will be a data transaction. Now, the customer will not notice it, there's no difference, apart from the fact that you can enrich voice again by deploying video conferencing, or by making high definition. You can do a lot of things by bringing it to a data system. So the subscription, and overall it will be a data business.
Thank you.
Olaf, as the pioneer of 4G in this country, and clearly organisation's got a lead, I'd like to ask you a question similar to the one I asked Neil Burkitt, which is this. Right now I know from looking at my own sons that they no longer have landlines at home. All their voice calls are taken on the mobile. They wouldn't dream of having a landline, except for internet access. However, once you've experienced 4G and what it does on your dongle or iPad or whatever, why would I bother to keep a fixed line?
So what did Neil say then?
Well, he did the usual story. Of course, we need backhaul and we need this and we need all this.
Which is right, by the way.
Which is true. But I also said, my view is that in the end, I will have a single device at home, which is a modem, which is a Wi-Fi access point, which is also a small cell on your network. And that way I get the advantage of, depending on what content or what type of thing I was doing, the intelligence in the system will decide how it will deliver it to me to optimize the cost and therefore provide a better return for the operator to give me all the services that I want.
Excellent answer.
I've just answered my own question.
But, well, you know, we have a fixed business as well, and we're going to grow that. It's going to become very important. We have rolled out fiber, or we are not rolling out fiber, BT does that, but we're selling and marketing and servicing fiber product. I do not believe that 4G is displacing fixed necessarily. It will only do that when fixed is not good. So we have seen that in Austria, we have seen that in this country in rural areas where there is no fixed. So there definitely 4G will serve the purpose. So I think there is a place for both, but both have to show their merit and their differentiation in the eyes of the customer. And then I agree with you that to the customer, ultimately, it doesn't make a big difference anymore. The device will, you know, a 4G device next year will basically, you know, be able in the home to use a Wi-Fi signal and make you can make a phone call via Wi-Fi router or via a fixed internet or via a 4G capable product. And then exactly as you said, depending on the load, depending on what's going on, the device or the network will select which route to take. The customer will not be worrying about that, and they don't need to be worrying about that. So that's, in my view, the direction that it takes. I can tell you, again, without marketing the service, but the 4G service is very exciting because most of the people don't know what you can do with it until you have seen it. And and then you don't go back. You know, you don't go back and use something old. It's very interesting. You get used. It's the same thing like try to remember when you didn't have a mobile phone. How did you work? It's kind of, I mean, I don't remember it exactly, but it worked somehow. You worked through it. But you cannot imagine now living without that particular tool. And the same is true with 4G, which can do so much more, so much more. You basically bring the whole a good fixed experience that you may have in the home or in the office, you bring that outdoor, on the road, in restaurants, everywhere. I mean, there is this interesting debate about indoor versus outdoor coverage. I will not go into too much detail on that, but our 4G will provide very good indoor because it's using a very dense grid.
Thank you very much indeed. We have, do we have time for one final question? One final question, if it's a good one, sir? No pressure at all.
Thank you for that. I was relaxed until about 30 seconds. Hi, Olaf. I'm David Rayburn from HP. There's been a lot of talk in the market about over-the-top services like WhatsApp and so on, especially recently now.
Yeah.
How are you going to either work with or compete against these services that are taking your pie? Everything you're saying makes absolute sense about the importance of the network, the speed and so on. But you have these guys who are making, I would even say, more money off of it than you possibly can. So what's your sort of strategy in changing your service to not fall in the trap of delivering a pipe for everybody else to make money on?
So the first thing that we're doing is we're bringing all the things into a subscription. So we have announced unlimited voice and unlimited text. It's the best way to remove this anxiety of people to say, I need to use WhatsApp or something because I get this extra charge and I have a per second or per minute or per transaction charge. And that has worked very well in the UK, by the way. So WhatsApp is important. It is important, but it's certainly not as important as in the Netherlands or in Italy or other places where the telcos have been too late in promoting and driving very large abundance in their products and services. So that's one way to do it. And then the second thing that we will do is we will bring very selectively, because we're not Apple, we're not Google, we're not a software company, but through partnering, we will bring some services to the market, which will, I think, excite you and others, which will compete with some of these products.
So, on behalf of everybody here, I want to say, Olaf, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.